Do you think about me now and then? Do you think about me now and then? 'Cause I'm coming home again. Baby, if do you remember when fireworks on Lake Michigan? 'Cause I'm coming home again. Maybe we could start again.
Welcome to Spoilers for Everything After Dark.
It's probably worth explaining that if you hear any sort of just weather effects, they're legit, and it's happening outside because we are. Well, it's my fault really. I'm way later back than I intended to be.
It's
so I went
22.
Out
It's 22:21 local time.
yeah, the old BST, the British summertime. So and it's pouring down with rain. We've been long overdue some rain, and it's decided to happen on the night of the podcast. And also because it's that late, don't want to be inside the house waking people up, so we're out in a shed essentially. It's a nice shed.
I think a shed does it a disservice. It's just like a little, I don't know.
It's kind of a man cave.
An annex.
An annex, yeah.
Annex.
Yeah, a disconnected annex. So yeah, so we got this. This is our sort of new space for now. It might actually be our future recording space.
I was actually thinking that while I was setting up. I mean, it's in a lot of ways it's preferable.
It is. We've both got chairs. Like one of us isn't like slumming it on a bed.
When they make the movie of our podcast,
yeah,
this will be the Scarface push it to the limit montage of us starting in your room with one USB mic between us, then we have an audio interface and a mic stand. Now we have two mic stands and two different microphones.
It's all kicking off. I mean, to be fair, it will show that happening and then it plateaus. And in fact, at one point we lose this place.
And the great thing is,
we're back to the bedroom.
All the gear and no idea. It's still just a rambling mess of non sequiturs.
Oh
and
yeah,
tangents.
I mean we're a good nearly 2 minutes in now, and we haven't even hit a subject. And in fact, I'm going to put my phone on airplane mode because if I get a message, I'm probably going to be distracted. It's nothing to do with actual audio interference, just because I'm a weak-willed man.
And I'm the guy who messed up because I just opened a can, and I'm usually the one giving you shit.
I'm usually the one who does it. And also today we've got a nice effect because this is actually my dad's office. So if I put a can, every time I put my can down, we get a little bit of a tambourine.
Well, that's good.
We get a bit of tambourine with it as well.
You can use that to punctuate some jokes.
We can kind of. That's probably. Oh, that's.
look at the.
That's the old spikeroonie. I should have warned people. I mean, we were talking about the tambourine before. Anyway, enough of that. We set the scene, and we apologise for any sort of sounds that we might make. So I think now.
If anyone's listening to this, they're used to poor sound quality.
That's true. I think we've upped it from the olden days, and by the olden days I mean literally late last year. So it's not. Oh god, it's halfway through the year. Halfway through the year already. That's insane.
So one day we'll have to go back soon and figure out when our first recording was, and then do
an anniversary.
Maybe listen to some of our old bits.
And
just critique them.
That would be really good.
And interesting.
What I would really like to do, maybe a bit of a game show where we each take clips that we want, and we'll have blanks, and we've got to take it in terms of trying to guess what the blank was.
That'd be good.
Yeah, that would be good.
I think I'd like to do is sort of make a compilation of maybe all of my stuttering and me stumbling over words, and the thing you do where in between words you sometimes go drag out the sound.
So this is actually a really interesting thing with public speaking in general and just speaking. I think that everyone has these different filler words, right? And I find it really distracting when someone has a filler word and as in fact my HR department, I say my HR department.
Yeah, you own
the
that
HR, the HR department of my work, the person who's there's someone in there who is so bad for that. When I hear her speak at because they obviously do some presentations and stuff, I'm just oh my god, this is so annoying to listen to, just because sometimes it's not too bad when you're in a conversation, you expect people to have filler words, but when they're presenting, you're like, come on,
you should have rehearsed this.
Yeah, exactly. This
you should know every word that you're going to say.
Yeah, even if it's a bit ad-libby, you should just And so I have in the past constantly tried to work on getting rid of filler words. What happened is I either fill it with a a pause. So I find that pausing is better than like nothing, or better than like having a
So
filler
hard
word.
to remember that in the moment, though.
It is, but then the other thing I fell back on, which is what you brought up, which is I will elongate the word that I was like last on. So if I'm like waiting to think about it, so I'll be like, kind of, you gotta think, and so it's like, although what I did there was I elongated a filler word there, which is the old 1-2 right there, like the old combo.
You dislike filler words, so drag them out.
Yeah,
Make it more of a problem.
exactly. Really highlight your flaws, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I'm here to sort of try and sell.
But public speaking is like anything, you know. It's something that you have to grow into, and
Yeah.
I kind of like that. Our podcast is just us talking the same way that we kind of talk in real life.
Yeah,
It'd be very easy to do like a hello and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
How are you today, Jonathan?
It's loads of segments and stuff. I think that I also, as far as, not to blow our own trumpets, because I feel like we dissed ourselves enough already. I think we're not too bad at it. Like I feel like naturally we're pretty good speakers, and we do we stick to some sort of coherency.
Let us know in the comments.
Oh, don't.
Don't remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. Please support my Patreon as well.
Oh gosh, that would be the saddest Patreon ever. What would be our goals? I don't even know.
The saddest Patreon ever was that to catch a cheater thing, where they were like, it was like to catch a predator, but fake cheating pranks.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And they had, I think they might have 1 or 2 patrons now, but at the time it was like 0. It's
shocking.
great when clickbait fails.
That's the thing, like clickbait. These channels that get like actually a lot of views don't really harbour any sort of audience, because like they don't really foster a community.
It's like Matt Hoss.
Yeah,
That guy was king of the views, and no fans.
Clickbait, like you watch it because either it's a train wreck or you're in some way psychologically deluded into actually being entertained. But you're certainly, if you are that person, you're probably 12 and you don't have the money to pay for a Patreon, and you're not going to go to your parents, oh, can I fund Matt Hoss, please?
Well, some of that will tie into the upcoming Let's Play special research episode.
Little cliffhanger, little tease.
A part of that story involves e-begging and basically someone's bad behaviour being supported through a community of 15 and 16-year-olds who don't really know better. Or at least
Interesting.
But that's not what we're talking about today.
No, that's the future.
Well, what hopefully I wanted to talk about today was 2 superhero movies.
Oh, 2 superhero movies.
I wanted to talk...
I think we'll end up talking about a lot more than 2.
Yeah,
so, like, the chance that none of these will be compared to anything else.
We're going to try and stay somewhat focused between talking about the new Spider-Man movie and the Wonder Woman movie.
Okay, we're bringing Wonder Woman to this. Yeah, the Wonder Woman is definitely worthy of a mention. Yes, the original plan was for us to watch it and then review it in the car, but we both ended up seeing it before today, which I think is probably for the better, seeing as what happened today. So
yeah, and maybe let's not get into that whole situation of miscommunications and
I think reading it back, I was objectively in the right. No, anyway, moving on.
I mean, so do I, but that's the nature of conflict.
Yeah. So we basically the gist of it. We've both seen the new Spider-Man film. I think we both liked it a lot.
I mean, speak for me. I mean, I thought it was great, but I had a lot of problems with it.
Really? That's interesting. I guess I was maybe watching it with less of a critical eye. Because at the time I wasn't expecting to do it in the podcast, and I was expecting to see it again before talking about it. So I guess I feel like I may have watched it in a way that's maybe more enjoyable, just because I wasn't. I guess I was pretty chilled out watching it, and I actually had a really good time. Watching it.
But everything I consume, like I'm kind of in my head, I'm writing my review for it as I'm watching it, playing it, listening to it, and then I just never ever
enjoy anything ever.
Well, no,
I know.
Sometimes it might come up in conversation. I'll go, "Hey, well, I thought this and I thought that," and
yeah, I think no, I'm not. It definitely wasn't my favourite of the Marvel films. Okay, let's go with some questions. Right, let's just get it out of the way. Where does it rank amongst the other Spider-Man movies?
I would say I definitely liked it better than Amazing Spider-Man, that franchise. I think it was better at capturing the dynamic of the two sides to Peter Parker Spider-Man than any of the previous ones were before. I thought that in Civil War. Like, I thought this kid, I could buy him as the nerd, and I could buy him as the cocky...
This was it, isn't it? Yeah.
And I don't know, like... It's so difficult to think about it in comparison to the other Marvel films, like, in that universe, and also to compare it to these other very different takes on the character.
I think the thing to really address here is there's a lot of history behind Spider-Man in cinema. Way more so than we ever had with Iron Man or Thor. Or, you know, they'd appeared on screen, but they not in this way, like not in this big budget superhero film.
They had never had a Hollywood blockbuster film.
And let's face it, Spider-Man really was...
He's had 5.
Oh gosh, you put it like that, that is mad, considering it came out in like the noughties. Like that's a lot of films per year.
So to me, the Spider-Man in this movie felt more like the Spider-Man from the 90s cartoon and the video games.
And to be honest, that's the one I aligned with more, to be like, in all honesty with you. Like, because I love the video games, and like I've never been like an avid comic reader, but I certainly picked up the comic, like, you know, the old one. Like, I never read like issue to issue back to back, but I'd read enough of like my gran. Every time I met her, she would always bring me a comic, and it was always like it was always a Marvel comic. That or the Simpsons comic, which was fantastic.
The Simpsons comic was surprisingly good.
Like, I would say, like, episode quality written on those pages. It was really funny.
I think there were even some like comic ideas that, like, there was one comic about Bart being in a boy band with Nelson and Milhouse and someone else, and that eventually became an episode. I think there were a couple of others that did as well.
Yeah, but
yeah, like
back to Spider-Man.
Good.
I think that. And you're right, it's really difficult to compare them because there's so much history around him in cinema and complexity to it, and it's kind of like, and for me, the biggest difference, and I think this worked to its credit, was that this was his solo film, but it wasn't his solo film. Like, he's in the MCU, which is a very different setting to the Spider-Mans we'd seen before. And I feel like the problem is, and you were talking about it like in the right way, which is this what type of Spider-Man is he? And you're right, like, Peter Parker is the nerd, and they've always had trouble merging it out with this kind of cocky teenage kid. And like, because Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, I did like in some respects. They definitely went all out on this the cocky, sort of smart ass kids. But they really, like, he was not believable as this nerd. They kind of chucked a bit of it in, but it was not believable in the slightest.
It was not. It's not convincing that Andrew Garfield wouldn't have friends and wouldn't.
Yeah,
be super
exactly. And then you've got on the other end, which is Tobey Maguire, super sold the nerds, but like, he just as Spider-Man, he just wasn't this cool.
He doesn't have that charisma.
and I think that was because, and the way I would put it is, he was the sole superhero in his films, and he had to carry the whole superhero thing on his back. And the thing that I really thought made this film shine was the fact that, you know what, Peter Parker, we weren't seeing his origin story again, which is a point of contention because, some kids like are new to him. There'll be kids watching this that have never seen Spider-Man before in some capacity, and they don't get an origin story. But
I was really interested to see if they would. I mean, they've already tackled. I'm pretty sure this was about what you were about to say. Like, they've already tackled the origin story twice on screen anyway.
Exactly. And two different versions of the origin story. One with like, sort of, where is his parents? And the other's like, yeah, they're dead. Like,
yeah, like, or see, the thing with Uncle Ben.
It's right.
It's
yeah. Sorry, moving on.
That's how Uncle Ben got killed. They put him in a microwave for 2 minutes, and he expanded.
And not even that. They're just like,
supposed to
that was
water.
talking about them. Yeah, it was. No, they just didn't cut the packet open. Like, they just didn't poke a hole. Anyway. Sorry.
Uncle Ben is a brand of rice in the UK and probably other parts of the world.
I think it's it must be a widespread. I expect so. Anyway, don't know.
I have the everything machine in front of me. I'm not going to look it up.
No, that would be against our rules.
The thing with the so it's implied in lines of dialogue in Civil War and in this film that Uncle Ben has died.
Yes.
Because he said, oh, you can't, when his friend finds out that he's Spider-Man, he says,
Yeah.
you can't tell May after everything
Yeah,
we've gone
she's
through.
been through a lot. It's definitely implied, and also I just don't know what value it would add to the film, because this is a different story. Like Uncle Ben and, you know, the origin story setting, like he was there as a catalyst for him becoming Spider-Man. You know, that was what, like, Uncle Ben's death really shaped who Spider-Man became, and there was this whole, you know, with great power comes with great responsibility. That's this thing. When I remember watching it playing out in The Amazing Spider-Man, I was like, I've just seen this before. Like, I just...
They even said the same thing, but a bit differently.
It just
didn't
felt like a parody. It felt like they had to try and do something different with it, but like at the same time they couldn't not do it. And I think the best way to genuinely avoid comparison is to just not do the thing. Like, you know, you can't... This film, I can't compare to the earlier ones on that level because you didn't see the origin story. That was a great thing. There was a different villain. There was a very different Peter Parker that we saw. It was all fresh, and also the biggest thing was he was interacting with the MCU, especially Iron Man. And what you saw here was you didn't need this character arc with him going through the Uncle Ben stuff, because he's done that, and that he's already had that motivate him to build his crappy suit and start fighting crime. You see him at that point in Civil War, and then you kind of get this idea that he's kind of been taken under the wing. And I really like where they picked up, you know, where he left off. He's got this little confidence boost where he's desperate to be in the Avengers and prove himself, but he's just inept. And like, that's really cool, because that's kind of where he can be. Because he doesn't have to support Spider-Man and the whole superhero concept, he can be not that good. He can be less than Iron Man.
And let's also acknowledge that within this version of Spider-Man, up until Homecoming, hasn't really faced a legitimate threat. And
exactly.
This is even said in the movie. Like, he says, I took Captain America's shield, and Tony Stark's like, if Captain America wanted to hurt you, like, you'd be dead.
I mean, like, he put you under that, like, you know, the rubble, right? Like, and that's what I really liked the position Spider-Man was in. That to me is where I like to see my Spider-Man, which is kind of being this naive, innocent kid who, you know, he's trying to do the right thing. He kind of comes up with these like little pun bits. He's always making these jabs, but like, they're not arrogant or whatever. He's not like cocky as such. He's more just like, you know, he's just an awkward teen, and he can be that because he's in the MCU. Whereas if he was just that in a normal standalone film, he wouldn't be very likable, or, you know, he would have to have more about him. But like, yeah, I thought that's what made it work on lots of levels for me.
See, a big part of the Spider-Man story, in terms of like how you can think of it analogously, is that it's effectively a story about puberty, right?
Kind of. Yeah.
He's adolescent.
Yeah.
His body is going through changes. His identity is changing. He's keeping secrets, and all of these things are changing in him. And one of the things that was interesting about the villain in all of the old Spider-Man movies, like the Raimi trilogy up until the third one, let's not go into that, were
Still not seen it, so I can't even. We're just going to avoid that for this.
most of the Spider-Man villains that are great are father figures who turn corrupt. They are the antithesis of Uncle Ben.
Yes, exactly.
So you have Doc Ock, who was like trying to take Peter Parker under his wing so they could do some science together. You have Norman Osborn, who wanted the similar thing and knew Peter since he was a kid. You have, you know, Connors, the Lizard, was literally Peter's teacher.
Yeah.
So there's this idea in the source material about, I don't know, father figures or role models, and I think that kind of ties in a lot to the puberty thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, who can you trust to guide you when the person that should be guiding you is dead?
Yeah, yeah.
And a big thing about this movie, where I think it struggled, was that it had to throw away so much of the Spider-Man mythology to get Spider-Man into the MCU.
That is true.
Because there is so much baggage in Spider-Man's mythology that was left out of this film. And I'm talking Green Goblin, his best friend, the second Goblin.
Yeah.
You know, like...
Yeah. And I think that is just a matter of opinion as to whether that was a downside or a plus to it. It's this sort of thing where, I mean, you almost can't view this film independently. Like, and this is what I meant by it's really tough to discuss this film because of the history of Spider-Man on screen. Like, there's so much. We've already had these two very different Spider-Mans put on screen, for better or for worse. But to be fair, you've still got those to go and watch. It's like, really, yes, fair enough, they didn't touch on Green. Fair enough, it avoided this mythos. But to be honest, I don't think it's needed. I don't think, I feel like the original, Spider-Man 1 and 2, they did it really well. I thought it was really cool. Do we really need just one with better CGI and a different actor? I don't think that there's a need for that.
Where I think they can turn it all around for me is if they do what they did to MJ with, I think his name's Ned. So
Right.
Peter Parker's new best friend who wants to build the Death Star Lego thing with him.
Yeah.
If that kid turns into the Green Goblin,
That'd
be awesome.
That would be amazing. Yeah,
You'd have to build a pretty sturdy board.
yeah, it would. It'd be a little bit of a hencher board. Yeah, but no, I see where you're coming from, and I agree that it's as a big Spider-Man fan, that is a shame that we didn't get to see that played out here. It would be cool, but I think it's been played out enough, and I found it really refreshing that we had this really good Peter Parker, and it was kind of nice to see some different characters on screen. It was kind of, I don't know, I found it refreshing, and I really love the Vulture.
Yeah, I particularly liked the way they tied the Vulture into the pre-established MCU. I felt that was tight right.
And this is it, right? And I get that you had to drop this baggage. They left this, like you say, the baggage of the mythology out. But, hey, we've now actually got a really good spot. I think he does fit the MCU very well. And I think the MCU all over the place has to mess with the comic books because, they've got to draw on it for inspiration, but ultimately make it work as some films. And I think they are nailing it. And I feel actually, when you try and put too much in there, it can really ruin it. And I'm we know from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 what that's like. That was just... oh my god, stop now, please. Come on.
There's that scene at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 where they show you all of the villains' suits, what they would look like.
Yeah.
And it's the sequel's not coming, guys.
No, guys, this is... you've ran this into the ground. That was I just remember, after... Right, the spoilers. We've called spoilers for everything. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not that great anyway. Get over it. But the best bit of that movie was... Oh, I really like Gwen Stacy for a start.
I mean, put that actress in anything.
Emma Stone.
That's
yes.
it. Yeah, I'll watch it.
Exactly. Yeah, me
fall
too.
in love with her.
She is, she's wonderful. But her death was, I thought it was brilliant. I loved it. I thought it was really well shot. It was genuinely gets your heart racing. Really good moment. And then, the film could have just been stopping there. No, it still went on. They had the Rhino turn up.
That took about 20 whole seconds, yeah.
Oh, it was just so...
And that was in every trailer.
Yeah, I know, and I was just
Imagine that, they put the final shot of the movie in a trailer.
Yeah. It was just a disaster of it. And this is what I really liked about this film, is they really knew what to focus on, I thought. And I agree that you do miss out on these key roles, and this sort of puberty throughput, but you do have this... You've actually got two opposing father figures in this film. Spoilers. Alright, let's just talk about... Right, okay, so let's talk about how great the Vulture was, and then let's move on to some other stuff.
But that was
later.
something that was bothering me throughout the movie. I was going, that he has no connection to this villain, he has no connection... And at a certain point I was like, oh, he's going to stop being Spider-Man and going after this guy, but how is it going to tie it back into Homecoming? And as soon as... And admittedly, this is 10 seconds before the reveal, but as soon as he got to the house and he knocked on the door...
Right, let's spoiler warning now.
And the shot changes to a perspective shot of whoever opens the door, but literally seconds before they showed it, I was like, it's going to be him.
Yeah, exactly. And I was in the same boat. And you know what? It was a wonderful twist. It was so well done, and it's so rare that you get because some twists... Some films come at twists with an attitude of, I'm going to try and I've
got a box. What's in the box?
Yeah, exactly. Proper M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong sort of thing. But this was such a nice, pleasant twist in the sense that it wasn't like they hadn't dropped enough hints in the film.
No, definitely not. He was constantly talking about his family.
Yeah, so he was a family-oriented guy, and you know what? Swear that to some level, you can. Best villains are ones that you can empathize with on some level, and really they're just one of these people who they've gone wayward and
they had a really bad day.
Yeah,
and they're never coming back from it.
No, and he literally, that is it. He had a bad day. He got a chip on his shoulder, and also you kind of all these thugs around him. He's also trying to control these guys who are just clearly idiots, and he's a cut above the rest, you know. And he's like, literally, I'm just trying to make an honest buck. We're making this stuff, we're selling it. You know, I'm supporting the
an
family.
honest buck as an arms dealer.
Well, yeah, you know. But then he even makes the point about, like, because, you know, when he's talking about, oh, you know, you're selling weapons to terrorists or whatever, you know.
You think your friend Tony
yeah, you
Stark's
think friend,
any different?
Exactly. Like, and it's this, you got this real, there was...
Because when he said that, I was like, oh shit, he's right.
Yeah, there's something so interesting about, like, this character and kind of, it just plays with your viewpoint a bit. And then when, obviously, yes, the moment, because I was thinking this too, it obviously, Peter basically has kind of, like, you know, a lot of, where he gets his suit taken away from him, he's kind of...
The all is lost moment.
The all is lost moment, and it's about him coming back from that, and how they had that happen was just, like, that, like you say, it cut to the door, and I was like, he's either gonna have found out where Peter lives and he's holding her hostage, or he's her dad. And I love the fact it was her dad. And like that car scene, like the house scene, the car ride.
Shut your mouth, you stupid bitch.
Yeah, and she's like,
he knows Spider-Man, and he's friends with Tony Stark.
Yeah, I know. And
but there's sometimes where that writing could come off as a bit cliched and a bit hackneyed.
It was brilliantly done.
But in that context where, like, you're trying to impress your dad by talking about how great and prosperous your
and it's the one thing you don't want to, and it was just and like and Michael Keaton he nailed that. Like he brought so much to that role. Like it was insane.
Yeah, I think he's just great at playing Birdman.
He is. What is with that guy and ending up playing Birdman? Like
I like to think that this is a sequel to, like, you can watch Birdman, he goes out the window and then he flies. Because that's in New York as well, right?
It is,
just fly down the road.
And it's got Emma Stone in it, which is obviously slightly disconnected, but
just take a lot of drugs and it's all the same universe.
Take a lot of drugs and anything. That's my motto. Anyway, so yeah, I thought as far as villains go, he was brilliant, and even, you know, how he took finding that out and like talking to Peter, and I think this is actually something that we can. I saw a really good video. And it was talking about, and I don't know if you saw it as well. Maybe we should actually give credit to this in the description if I can find it. But it was talking about why Wonder Woman was so good, and why superhero movies, a really bad element of superhero movies nowadays is their lack of sincerity. I don't know if you saw it.
I don't think I did. No.
So the whole point of it, and it is actually something that I kind of has grated on me a little bit about the MCU, is how it undercuts. At so many serious moments that should have impact, it undercuts them with a joke to avoid people being able to almost parody it. It's almost like they're afraid of... Because basically...
I'm going to give an example of what you're talking about. It's the fact... I know I'm sick of this. If anyone from the Marvel team is listening, stop doing this.
Yeah.
Stop having characters refer to the Incredible Hulk as the big green guy.
Yeah, like there's things like that all the time. And
we accept the Hulk. Just roll with it.
And the example that this guy gave, and it actually ties into this great, because we want to talk about Wonder Woman as well. So what this guy talked about, he used the original Spider-Man film, because now that the movies are saturated with superhero films, a lot of them are too afraid to be sincere, because they're worried they'll get parodied. So they almost parody themselves in order to kind of undercut it, and it actually undersells moments. And a great example was in the first Spider-Man film. Although I think it might be the second one, like where he's had these like all is lost moment, and he comes back and he's like clenching his fist, and it's like this great heroic huzzah moment. There's no joke there. He then goes and he kicks ass, right? But in like Doctor Strange, he pointed out there's this bit where he like the cloak lands on him, and it's a brilliant moment, and then it starts stroking him, and it's a bit silly, and it's like it just kind of takes this tone away because it's aware of its own cliches, whereas Wonder Woman and actually this Spider-Man film were both great examples of they took themselves seriously. Like when Peter is under that rubble. Like,
oh god, yeah.
Oh, it feels so, and there was no silly joke. Like he didn't get up and there was something silly happen. He just went and he was like, right, and he still went after the Vulture even after that happening. And it was a proper. He took his, this whole thing where he remembered what Tony said about, if you need this suit, if you're nothing without this suit,
Then you don't deserve it.
you shouldn't have it.
I would have much preferred that scene to not have had the Tony Stark flashback dialogue.
It didn't need
because-
it. It should have been like almost a. You should have been able to realize it, like the tone they were going for.
There was another moment like that in the first Guardians of the Galaxy film where you have they all join hands to like try and channel the energy, and it flashes back to Peter's mum as she dies. She reaches out to him, and that was another moment where I was like, that symbolism is there, and people can spot it.
They've already set it up.
You don't need to cut to his
show
mum showing it.
It just strikes you, no pun intended, but a bit handholdy, doesn't it?
Yeah,
With the storytelling.
And I get that they have to make this stuff accessible for kids, but at the same time, MJ put up her middle finger in this movie.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I'm just going to get this out of the way now, and this probably does not surprise you, and it doesn't surprise anyone, but I did not care for the new MJ. And I'm going to give a quick couple of minute diatribe on the differences between old MJ and new MJ.
Okay, I guess like I guess I was a little bit confused with it because she's not Mary Jane, right? No, but they've called her MJ. Is she from the comics
I don't
in any
think so.
capacity? So this is a new character they've introduced, and because I don't know how I felt about her. I felt like because they spent a lot of time on actually developing her, like she was in there like quite sincerely. And to be fair, they did spend time on other characters from his school group, but yeah, she got a disproportionate amount of screen time for a very little like payoff at the end. I assume it's setting up for the future.
I do as well. I just didn't like how in every possible moment she was like ahead of the curve, smarter and quippier than everyone else. It sort of felt a little bit like SJW pandering, and
Oh, interesting. See, I guess this is like, it depends if you... I'm not saying it wasn't there, and I guess what I'm saying is like, it depends if you're looking for it, because I didn't feel like it was that, but maybe.
I mean, there's a really like offhanded reference to slavery in this film.
Oh, with the... Yeah, I guess that's a point that... Yeah, I guess that got a bit political, because she was like...
And I actually liked that moment for the first few seconds when it was happening, when she said, "I'm not going to go in this building because, you know, it was profit."
Oh, he was like, "Are you admiring it?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't really want to admire a monument built by slaves." And then the guy's like, "No, like that's not true." And he looks at the guard.
That was the moment I had a problem with it, where
It's like the
the dumb white teacher is like, "I don't know about anything to do
like,
with slavery,"
and like all the black guys know, like all the black people know about
you
it.
need to get woke.
Yeah, that was a bit cringy.
And that's kind of like an
But hey, let them have that. They've been through a lot.
Yeah, it's like cultural reparations. Yeah.
Oh, I don't understand. Well, I do understand where they get it at, but I don't understand.
And to be fair, like, people have talked a lot about how like ethnically diverse the cast of this movie is, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's probably...
Maybe I'm being naive in the fact that I just don't... I'm not coming across... I don't want to come across as this whole, like, I don't see colour, 'cause obviously I do, but, like, I'm not blind. But like,
Colourblindness is part of the problem.
yeah, but this is what I mean is, like, I guess I didn't notice it. Because that's the world I want to live in anyway, which is, like, where it literally doesn't matter. And so I don't really think of a whitewash film as big... But I watch the film, and if I like the people, it doesn't matter what skin colour they are.
That's the thing. And I didn't care. In an earlier podcast, I said I don't care if they change MJ to be black as long as they make her a different person, which is what they did.
Yeah, that's true.
But
yeah,
I
forgot
felt
about
like
that, actually.
I felt like in this particular instance, like what was great about the Peter and MJ relationship in the comics and in the previous movies is that Mary Jane Watson appears to be something that she is not, much like Spider-Man. She appears to be this confident, beautiful, popular girl in school, but actually her home life is a wreck. She has an abusive father. She has to go and work a bunch of shitty jobs where people don't appreciate her. She breaks into show business and sings at an opera concert, but her voice doesn't carry beyond the first row.
Yeah.
And I feel like that stuff, while there were elements of that version of MJ that were problematic, the fact that she's always used as a damsel in distress, fine, I'm glad that element is gone. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like the other elements of depth were just replaced with like snarkiness and cynical kind of jokes.
Like while she was characterized, she definitely didn't have much depth to her. But I guess that's kind of because they actually did focus on another love interest in this film,
who I did like. It's a shame that she's gone.
Yeah, but I think what they've done. So I agree. If this MJ I think it was kind of nice that like you did have this love interest and she was set up that way, and I guess this MJ will be fleshed out a lot more because I think there's probably more going on with her than was shown in this film. So I think it's remained to be seen what sort of role she'll play. I think it was a bit, like you say, it was a bit weird. She almost came across as this kind of like Oracle Guardian. Like
she's too cool. She's too cool for the room in every situation. She turns up to detention and she doesn't have it. It's just
very. It was a very kind of ham-fisted approach to characterizing a character, like putting a character on screen.
It's a kind of bullshit fallacy to complain about realism in superhero movies.
I know,
but there are some elements of that of relationships in this movie that I felt were felt very real. In particular, Aunt May.
On this, like put a quick pin in that. What I was just gonna say on the subject of this realism, it's weird because so realism isn't really like all that in a bag of chips. Like what I mean by realism, if something feels unrealistic, it's what I'm really saying is actually there's something there that was jarring that took me out of the movie. And so when you're saying obviously there's an irony to complaining about realism in a superhero movie, it's like they're saying there's an irony complaining about realism in like Lord of the Rings, right? But like I think it's all about how it's presented, because I think what's nice about like superhero films and it's all about how you put it in there. And if you just basically say, okay, you just got to accept that magic exists, you can kind of go with that, right? As long as like it's kind of consistent.
There's some kind of rules. Magic works in this way.
Yeah, exactly. But as long as it doesn't go too in depth like midichlorians, that's like for me the Force worked because it didn't have to be explained. It's just like, okay, this is kind of how it works, but we haven't gone into like what exactly makes it work, and that's fine. I can kind of accept that. But like what I mean is like, and that's because it's so also like high fantasy. Like superhero powers are so like, you just got to accept them because they're so detached from us. This is just how that world works. But when you're talking about human interaction, that is something that like already does exist. It's not newly introduced. So when you have it work in a jarring way, it's way more noticeable than even a man swinging with webs, because it's like this is actually something. It's kind of this uncanny valley thing, right?
Like in Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith. The scene is literally Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting each other with lightsabers, jumping across lava.
Yeah.
It's all CG and it's all fake. But the thing that stands out as being unrealistic is when Anakin goes, "Well, from my perspective, the Jedi are evil."
Yeah, and it's because you've written it in such a way that's like it's so obvious. You like it, all of it. Anything.
As an audience, I will accept that they are there and fighting in that way, but I don't accept that he's really talking to his best friend.
Yeah, exactly, and I think this is so key with writing. Is like. And like I say, you have all this unrealistic stuff in it, but the thing that's like, anyway, no, it reminds me of the Hot Fuzz line, which is like, I sat through an hour and 20 minutes of so-called acting, and that kiss was the only convincing thing in it.
And he says it later and slams the desk and taps him on the shoulder.
Because he copies exactly what. Anyway, but it's kind of the reverse of what we're saying. But like, but yeah, and I think human interaction is something that's really easy to get wrong, and and like the flashbacks, like if you make it too prominent and basically if you make it too obvious that you're using a movie technique, then you're going to notice it and it's going to bring you out of it. It's about subtlety and real character interaction that's going to actually do that. And yeah, and I think MJ was too shallow, like, but maybe I'm interested to see where she goes, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm like I'm in, but I'm not. I wasn't won over by that character, but it was interesting because I felt like contrasting how I felt about that relationship to every other relationship in the movie, like Ned and his relationship with Peter. I thought again another character that could be written to be super obnoxious and annoying, like
super good, really good.
The blabbering friend who kind of messes everything up. And
yeah, I thought it was really nice actually, like how much screen time a lot of characters got in this. Like they all felt really well introduced for the most part. Obviously, I mean, like MJ was just a bit of a side. She was almost just like a reference. She was this weird like character you kind of kept tracks of, but she didn't tie into the story in any way. That's kind of what felt most bizarre. It's like usually if something's being shown on screen, it's because it's going to have a purpose later on. I forget what it's called. It's like Chekhov's gun.
Chekhov's gun, yeah.
Yeah, but like,
which is another, like literally that's in Shaun of the Dead as well. They talk about the gun in the opening moment of the movie, and then at the end of the movie, they are using the gun to fight zombies.
Right, okay. Well, because I remember it from Archer.
Right, yeah.
Like, because that's like in the first. I think it's like one of the first episodes where He's talking about all these different things. Like there's a poison pen, and he's like talking about Chekhov's gun, and then like Chekhov's gun never gets used, and they like make a reference. It's so well written. Anyway, but the pen ends up being used. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, she was a bit weird because like she was in all these scenes and just amounted to nothing. Like she's kind of this like
I'm also here, like constantly just putting her hand up and chiming in, and
and
that was. I think
it's like people are like, well, you never see people go to the toilets in movies. Like, no, like what? Like obviously not. It's not related to anything unless there's like a scene where someone's doing coke in the toilet. Why would you? In fact, there is a toilet scene. It's actually quite funny in Homecoming.
Oh yeah, of course, with Happy Hogan.
Yeah.
That again, another great thing about kind of relationships and carrying stuff over from the prior MCU. Like, not only is Tony Stark great in this film, Captain America is great in this film
so
as well.
good.
And they kept that they kept that hush. I did not know Captain America would be in this movie.
And he was put in such a brilliant way. Like, it's just the way, and that's what I think so good about MCU. For the most part, it's so coherent. Like, it's so like. Just everyone, a big part of these sort of things is, and even like long TV shows, for what makes when they work for me is when the characters stick to who those characters are. They still have an arc, but they feel true to what those characters would do and then how they'd interact. And Captain America in this film, of course, he would be this like talking face of all these like educational videos.
He was propaganda, so you get to see some of that ground level,
and it's still going
propaganda.
on. It's like still going on, like post even the bit where he's like in detention, he's like, I think he's a war criminal now, but like whatever. I don't care. I'm meant to play this stuff. Like I just thought it was brilliant. It's like just these little references to what's happened in Civil War. Like this world feels like it still exists. Didn't really get the 8 years on thing though. That seemed a bit long. It was like after the Avengers 1, it was like 8 years later.
So it's 2 years from now.
Yeah, but that's like a big jump. I didn't think Civil War was set 2 years from now. I thought it was pretty much running with our timeline. I just thought it was an interesting timestamp, and I don't know where it marries up.
No, I'm pretty sure that Civil War happened. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Civil War happened in the year that it was set, because I think there's a title card that says 1984.
Yeah, and then it jumps back, doesn't it? And that's what's really weird, is because it says 8 years later than New York. So unless New York happened before when we thought it did,
I'm pretty sure it started with 2012. I'm pretty sure there was a title card saying 2012.
So 8 years later,
no, it was Avengers time.
And then like 8 years later was when it went to Peter Parker Nowadays, and then like it was like a few months later after Civil War. So yeah, we're talking like 8 years and a few months. It just feels a bit.
I'm sure someone's keeping track of it somewhere.
That seems like a pretty big misstep if they got those years wrong.
I'm sure we'll find out about it. Someone will make a Tumblr post and
yeah. Oh yeah, people in their Tumblr posts. God damn.
One of my favourite jokes in the movie, and again, I think there were a lot of great jokes in this movie, but the Captain America on the TV screens thing, it's where he's talking about the fitness program, and he goes, "My good buddy here," and he gestures, and the guy stood on the other side of the TV. Very quick, sort of subtle jokes, but it's just classic, like slipping on a banana skin.
Did you hear that guy hired a lookalike to go to the premiere?
Who?
I can't remember his name.
Chris
the
Evans?
comedian. No, the guy who's playing the gym coach and the guy who hosted Detention. I can't remember his name. He's a pretty well known comedian. I think he's on the Eric Andre show. Doesn't really matter. I mean, if you find it, that's cool. But anyway,
it's Hannibal Buress.
He paid a lookalike who didn't even look like him to go to the premiere instead of him. I was like, what? Like, anyway. Not sincerely, like he was doing it as a joke, but
yeah, well,
he's a comedian. So
yeah,
that's what he does.
It's all a bit.
It just made me laugh. That poor guy must be so, because he was giving interviews. This impersonator was giving interviews as him, like not knowing anything about the film. It's like that's brilliant.
That is ingenious.
That is ingenious. So yeah,
is there anything you would want to say about Spider-Man: Homecoming, or should we transition?
My whole stance on it, I think we should transition in a second. But like, yeah,
final thoughts
from each of us. I thought that I agree with you on a lot of points. That yes, it's not kind of the Spider-Man we've seen before, but I think that's a good thing, and I think it's a Spider-Man that I like, and I do want to see more of him, and I'm looking forward to see what they do with him. That's a lot of fun as well. Great villain, but almost I might prefer the Vulture. Like he's kind of maybe on par with Loki. I really
That's pitching it high.
I thought it was one of the MCU's best villains, like the one I actually cared about, because I think one of MCU's weakest points are the villains, and I thought the Vulture was really strong. I think in general the villains aren't that great in MCU.
I mean, in particular, like villains in the Thor movies, like everyone who's not Loki sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you having these other people in when you've got the best villain sitting there?
Exactly.
Okay. So my final thoughts
Let's have the first Doctor in it. Or, well, technically the ninth Doctor, but hey.
Yeah. Wow. So my final thoughts on Homecoming. Yes, I had some problems with it, but none of them were enough to detract me from enjoying the film. I think it captures the teenage element better and more accurately than any of the other adaptations. I think it captures both sides of the character the best it has. I think it was very funny, very like fresh, and I think it ties into the other events of the MCU a bit more. And it was good to kind of see like that ground level superhero stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, actually that's a good point. Really, well, let's not go into it. I think that's a good point about how grounded it was. Like, we've not seen a Marvel movie that grounded for a long time.
Yeah, and I think part of that was that it was his first outing, so you have to kind of have the scales.
And sort of like being the kid of the group as well. That's quite interesting too, because all the other ones are, Doctor Strange. Wasn't Ang Lee, was it? Was it Ang Lee? He's Ang Lee, isn't he? Ant-Man. Is it Ang Lee in this one, or is that Michael Douglas? Scott Lang. Oh God, Ang Lee. Who's Ang Lee?
Ang Lee is the director of the 2004 The Incredible Hulk film.
That's the one. Yeah. But yeah, they're already quite well-established people, but this guy actually has quite a good journey's gone. Anyway, so now we're going talking about a pretty good Marvel movie to the first good DC film, or the DCEU.
Well done, DC. You finally made a good movie.
Yeah. That was unexpected. I really was not. I was like, it sucks so far. Like, why should this be any good?
And in the pantheon of superhero movies, I don't think it ranks that highly, but I think it's just the first actually positive product that DC has put out. Like,
see, that's interesting. I think it was actually a pretty outstanding, like, considering, like, so almost putting MCU aside, because I think even a mediocre MCU film excels because it's got the other films backing it up, and I think it's almost like when you're talking about games and it's a co-op game and you're like trying to decide whether it was good because you played it with your mate or whether it was a good game. It's kind of like MCU feels a bit like that. It's like they're supported by their buddies.
I'm just meeting up with all of my old superhero friends.
like literally you put like one of the superheroes from another film in this one, and everyone goes, "Oh damn!" And I love it. It's a great moment, but and I think unfortunately, actually fortunately, Wonder Woman didn't actually, despite having a superhero from another one of their films in it, which is definitely not a good thing, it still managed to be good. So, congratulations to women. Topical. No.
To woman,
To woman.
And again, like, see, I really was expecting there to be
horrible feminist overtones.
Horrible SJW pandering.
See that? Yeah. Sorry. And me and you, I think, do differ on like sort of the feminist stuff.
I think you should like put them all in gas chambers and murder them all.
What you do? Oh, for God's sake! There's no coming back from that. That's out there now. Like, you can't take. I mean, it's obviously a joke, but like, if you just take that out of context, that's. Like,
yeah, that's where we differ. I want them.
You're going to lose your Disney contract if you're not careful, Hayden. Yeah, but I think this
satire. It's all a satire show. Come on.
But I think we can both agree that SJWs, social justice warriors, for those who don't actually know what that is, like these people who are just part of this outrage culture, who just, it's less about an actual means to an end and more about just trying to be right and not actually sort of any cause and effect.
If I was actually anti-feminist as a thing, I would not have enjoyed Wonder Woman.
No.
And I'm not saying that like me liking Wonder Woman gives me a clean slate, but I'm just saying like I felt it was great. It was great because it took out.
I don't think it was pandering to anyone. Like,
no.
It was really good. Like, it was just literally, and I feel this is like how women should be represented in films. They should just be really good characters who happen to be women, not like characters that like. And in a weird way, if anyone could have been used for that sort of agenda, it would have been Wonder Woman. Like
100%, yeah.
But she was just a really good character. Like, I thought she was just as interesting as, like, any male character in that film, and she was just well written. I thought it was really good.
And I think where it kind of becomes a problem for me is that, like, I think shoehorning in a political agenda just gets in the way of the character, and it gets in the way of the story, and I think those things should come first, and I think they did in Wonder Woman.
This was really nice. It was about the story, but also it was just nicely kind of about humanity. It was just a really good kind of, you know, she's innocent and naive and protected from this world, and she gets exposed to how people are, and I thought I liked that topic. I thought it was pretty interesting, and you know,
especially because of this. Sorry to interrupt, but the setting of the film being set in the First World
So
War,
good.
like historically a time where women didn't have all the rights.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good like place to put her in, and it was it
But
was
then
really cool.
and there still were a lot of scenes of like her talking in front of politicians and them going, "Harumph, a woman in here."
But it was an actual setting in which they were proper, like women were really oppressed. Like,
but at that point, I was like, I'm okay with like the British politicians being portrayed as dicks, because the Amazonians were kind of being dicks as well. Like, we're not going to help you out. The war, fuck it, let them all die.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about her character as well.
Steve, both of them transcend like the authority of like what they think is right versus what they are told to do.
Yeah, really good. Oh man, he was a greatly written character as well. Like, he didn't detract from her in any way, but like he really added to the whole experience. I thought, I mean, the one thing I was gonna, I don't know, maybe that's just my bias, but like, in a weird way, like, I get that he obviously plays that role in the comics as well, like throughout, like Steve has been there as this like catalyst for her. But it
Face
just
the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Face the microphone.
I was gonna when I was speaking, but I feel like, yeah, for me, it was just kind of a shame that they just had to fall in love. Like, it was kind of a bit of one of these moments where, like, because I don't know, I get it. It was a nice scene. And obviously it had its purpose later on in the film. But I was just like, I was enjoying it so much without a love story that when it kind of became one, I was like, oh, okay, that's happening. Like, it's kind of course, like the first man she meets, she's gonna fall in love with. Like, what?
But it wasn't. Again, like it could have come off that way, but it wasn't. It wasn't like she saw a man and she was like, "Oh my god, man, jump all over you."
Yeah,
it was.
yeah.
And in fact,
There's
a scene.
It came out of a really nice place, I think.
There is a scene at the start near the early part of the film where they're on a boat together and they're talking about sex, and she says she quotes something and she's like, they came to the conclusion that men are necessary for reproduction but unnecessary for pleasure."
Yeah.
So,
It's such a good line.
But the fact that like that's how she feels setting off from Paradise Island.
That's true.
Later on in the film, like she has fallen in love with a human. It's all about humanity, and I think that's kind of like that's what prevailed that relationship to me into a good thing. And also, like, there were just a lot of nice scenes between them. Like,
yeah, I thought it was really
talking about their values and where they come from and the differences between them.
I thought it was really good, and also I loved that. I really like a film that like doesn't shy away from reality of stuff, and I feel like this whole film was this rival of ideology versus reality, and it was because she was coming at it from this. She had a very black and white view of the world, like, you know, this is right, this is wrong. You know, literally thought she could take on Ares, and that was an interesting line of thing, because obviously throughout the film you've got Steve playing the opposite to that. He's obviously like grateful for her help or whatever, but like really he is a skeptic of what she's saying, and I guess the audience is on his actually, and it's a weird one because I feel like the audience could have either taken side with her or him on that. You know, whether you are like someone who believes in like moral black and white, or you're someone like him who tries. He was very realistic about it. He was like, there's bad people on both sides, and when she was talking about Ares, he was like this must be a metaphor, right? Like, and actually the film plays it as a metaphor at one point. Like, you know, literally she thinks that she gets in her head that defeating the general he's Ares, and defeating that will literally end the war. And she looks around and people are still fighting, and all of a sudden there's this mystic thing has just been pulled, like this rug's been pulled from under her, and Steve's like angle has been proved right, and I thought that was really interesting. I was like, oh, like, I'm kind of glad the film went to that place. And then, literally, it goes from being a metaphor to a physicality, and I was like, well, this is a welcome twist as well. Like,
I didn't necessarily enjoy all of the sort of 10-minute CGI action scene that felt very tacked on, but what I will say is that going back to their relationship, I liked that she was right about a lot of things and was also wrong about a lot of things, and so was Steve.
Yeah, this is it, and it came to this weird middle ground where, like, he was right about just people on both sides being bad and the world not being as black and white as her, and she kind of lost hope in humanity. But then actually her love for him restored that, and actually Steve was wrong. Ares was for it. Like, she was, you know, it was this weird
and
sort of...
she killed him, and you can see, like, when the rubble of that thing clears, you can see soldiers from different sides helping each other.
And she also, but it kind of rode that line between, like, she realised then that he wasn't, you know, like, she thought he was the cause of it and it was like some spell, but actually he had just kind of been influencing it from there, and actually people were, you know, he was just trying to enable people. He saw it as, Ares saw it as, people are inherently bad, and he was just trying to show these creations up by helping them along.
Just help all of them wipe each other out.
Yeah.
A very clever concept for a villain. I just felt it was very rushed in the context of the story.
Oh yeah, I think the end bit was a little bit kind of a quick wrap up, but actually I'm glad they spent so long on the other stuff, because that was really where it shone. And I feel like where, like, Man of Steel and Batman vs Super, like, it was just such superficial fighting that it came down to, like, who cared about Doomsday really? Like, it was horrible. Like, such a horrible implementation of, like, the thing who ultimately killed Superman in that. And also, why did it appear in, like, the second outing of Superman? Like, anyway,
I know, like,
shocking.
Talk about, like, shooting your load way too early.
It is. That is exactly, and that's what Wonder Woman was so refreshing, because, like,
Wonder Woman edges you for 2 hours and then you get a nice release at the end.
yeah, it doesn't. Oh god. Yeah, no, but it was a phenomenal film. I think it's been a brilliant summer for, you know, actually we've got 5 minutes left. I kind of want to sneak in a little cheeky bit of Baby Driver. Have you seen Baby Driver?
I've not seen Baby Driver.
Oh no, we can't sneak it in. Oh, well, I was going to say it's been a brilliant start to the sort of summer blockbuster, because we've had Wonder Woman.
Based on today's rain, though, it might be that.
Yeah, the summer's over now.
Yeah, done.
This is it. There's no more to come. But, like, yeah, like, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, brilliant superhero hits, and yeah, in all honesty, Baby Driver, absolutely loved it. I'm really struggling to pick which one I enjoyed more.
I think
they all have their great merits, but I think in terms of originality, oh my god, like, Edgar Wright's Baby Driver, damn.
Well, Edgar Wright he's just in a whole league of his own in terms of, like,
he really is. I guess I'd never really thought of him in that sense, but, like, now looking back, actually, like, he's either done completely original films, which is rare, or he's adapted and done a really faithful comic book, you know, because obviously he did Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Like,
but Scott Pilgrim vs. the World as a comic book was so already closely aligned to the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know, Sum 41 covering a Blink-182 song. It's, you know, it's gonna work. It's fine.
Yeah, and anyway, yeah, Edgar Wright, like, I guess I kind of now have new respect for him, because, like, I almost see him as more of, like, a Tarantino now. Like, now I really see him as a genius director. I loved his editing style, but, like, I guess he is, while Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and World's End were distinct films in terms of genre, like, or kind of like the things they were taking on, they still very, like, they felt kind of very thematically similar, whereas this was a complete departure from that. You know, like, they were all about, like, male bonding and kind of, like, you know, addressing, like, sort of, you know, how people are in these situations. But yeah, and then this was a more grounded, you know, tackling different things, and oh my god, like, considering he wrote and directed that, holy moly.
So I haven't seen it, but the thing that most excites me about it is the idea that just the premise of, like, how the film uses music. To me, like, that sounds like a perfect Edgar Wright thing. Like, that dude has always been quick and flashy with his cuts.
He's such a visual, like I mean, obviously he's a visual director, but, like, the nice thing is, because he's a writer and director and he directs his own films that he's written, is he wrote that in mind. Like, the soundtrack is a character in the film, basically.
There's, like, even a playlist that's been put out of, like, stuff I was listening to when I wrote Baby Driver and stuff that's in Baby Driver.
Oh, and literally, well, no, he wrote the script to the songs, and when he because I've watched a few interviews, when he sent out the scripts.
Oh, he sent them the music. Yeah.
It came with an app, and what they do is when they got to a certain part in the script, they'd press play and they'd read it through with that song on loop, like so they can get the atmosphere resetting. And I was just like, that's awesome. And
I listened to him and Kevin Spacey on Mark Commode's show, and Kevin Spacey was saying like it's almost like being in a musical, like you're timing your movements and your gestures to the beat of the music, and it's a thing. Like,
but what's really nice is it wasn't overdone either, and also it didn't feel forced because he fit it. Obviously, it had its purpose because he's got tinnitus and like it was just a really neat original concept. There's so many levels that felt original as well. It's like it wasn't just the music and the editing, but the characters felt really good. Like the whole film was really tight. Like,
have you seen the music video that it was like based on?
Yeah, well, no, that's Edgar Wright too.
Yeah,
I have. Noel Fielding, Julian Barrett,
Mighty Boosh, it's dancing.
and Nick Frost was in that.
Of course, yeah. And he, 2.5 minutes,
and by the way, that scene, that music video is essentially how the film opens. So it's not really a spoiler, but like when it opens, so he apparently got the idea when he was listening to a song by, I think it was called Bell Bottoms, not by the Bell Bottoms. It was a song Bell Bottoms, and he had this, and every time he listened to that song, he thought about Getaway Driver, and so the first opening is to that song, and and that opening has him like in the car. They get out for a heist, and literally he's like doing the wheel movements, and he turns the wipers on. It's literally that the first opening 3 minutes of that film are a mix of those two ideas: the music video and the song he's listening to with the Getaway Driver. And it's so funny watching that music video back, how much choreography he took from that initial bit and put in Baby Driver.
In an interview, I heard him saying like, I was a nobody when I had the idea for this film. Like I was just listening to this song, and in my head I was picturing like this movie that could fit around it. And to me, like that's like that. Anyone who is in any way, like if you have 1% of creativity inside you,
I've done that so much.
You will relate to that. You're like,
like hearing a song and imagining what can go along with that song is something that I think, like you say, if like some people won't, but like a lot of people, especially people who love film and whatever, like it's such a good, it's so relatable. And for him to take that 20 something years later and turn it into, and just also, I'm so pleased for him because obviously Ant-Man fell through for him, and to come back and write and direct this and have it like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes and everyone love it and it be his highest grossing film, or it's like his fastest grossing film, is just props to him. It's nice to see hard work rewarded, like kind of thing.
And it's kind of like the opposite of what we were saying about Metal Gear Survive as well, because like this is a situation where we all win. Like we got Ant-Man. Ant-Man was a great movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it was Edgar Wright's influence on the initial part of it that probably translated to how funny and original Ant-Man felt at the end.
There's no way that like that film, and this is it. Like I guess they broke up over like he probably didn't want to tie it into the MCU as much and whatever. But
the stuff with the Falcon maybe is probably
exactly.
Moments like that.
He probably didn't want that in there. But there are definitely scenes, like especially where the conversation's happening. So there's someone describing a conversation, and then you see the actual conversation.
So I said to her, "Did she tell him to tell you to tell me to tell him?"
And it's all like a side swiping. Like that was so Edgar Wright. Like that getting those actors to like make their mouths move in time with pre-recorded audio. I was going to say, there's no way that Edgar Wright didn't write that scene. Like, that was definitely an Edgar Wright scene. Like, he would have written, and it pans to this person, and pans to this person. So I'm very grateful he was involved with that.
If you want to understand how much Edgar Wright loves movies and how little you know about movies, you should go on YouTube and type in
Quentin Tarantino.
Have you listened to it?
It's insane. I've never...
So many references.
Well, they don't talk about Hot Fuzz, basically. It's literally them just
they only mention it as a jumping off point to talk about other
and
movies.
They just gush about genres and movies and who directed them and when they were directed, and it's phenomenal. Like, if you like film, that's it's shocking. Like, it's crazy how much knowledge they have about films. They're like kindred spirits, those guys. Like, they really are.
It's just like, I need to see those guys make a movie together. It'd be
phenomenal. Like, the action of, like Tarantino's, like, visceral... Like, the thing is, I don't think they could ever work together. Like, I'd love to see it, but they're just so their own person. Like they're brilliant, knowledgeable, but I just think they're great on their own. I don't think they need.
I don't know. Under pressure, Queen and David Bowie. Like sometimes two positives can make another positive. They don't always have to like cancel each other out or diminish the other one. But I do get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's almost like there'd be so much anticipation for it that it's like, oh man, it's gonna suck now. It's gonna disappoint.
So we're just over the hour mark. I think we've covered both actually pretty significantly.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of final points you want to make about Wonder Woman? Because I don't think we gave Wonder Woman the final summary.
I will say, Gal Gadot is great in it. Diana is the most interesting and most well-rounded character that the DC cinematic universe has had. Which, I mean, okay, Superman is a bit of a nothing to get started, but the fact that I find her as a character more well-rounded and likable than even Batman is something. I think that the DC Universe movies have struggled because they try way too hard to be gritty. Yeah. This movie set itself in the First World War, which meant that there was an excuse for the grit. The grit felt relevant and it was poignant. You're seeing the victims of war. Yeah. That stuff is usually kind of like brushed over in comic book movies. They try and hide the casualties. Wonder Woman brings them forward, and that motivates her to do better. Yeah. Lucy Davis, hilarious as Candy.
Yes.
Unrecognizable, but once I oh, that is Lucy Davis. So, yeah, great film. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, my thoughts were very similar. They're pretty much that. Yeah, I'm glad that DC have finally got their act together. And yeah, I think it was mainly just how they, where they said it and the tone they set as well. Like for me, I'd much rather have less action and it mean more than just to have like big punches and explosions don't mean anything. The destruction at the end of Man of Steel, I didn't care for any of that. No. And whereas in this, a much smaller scale battle had me on the edge of my seat, like her running through that German encampment, because you'd see her go on a journey. That was actually interesting and compelling. You were so with her throughout that fight. It was brilliant. And yeah, I just thought they'd actually made a genuinely interesting character that I cared about. And I feel like that's been DC's biggest problem, is actually getting the audience to care about the characters on screen. So basically, thank God Zack Snyder wasn't involved. I feel really bad because I love Watchmen. I'm such a big Watchmen fan, but damn, Zack Snyder has made some bombs. Like I was so excited to see Sucker Punch, and that was god awful.
Yeah, it's one of the worst movies I think I've ever seen.
The annoying thing is, I was so excited about that film, and I made like all my cousins come to see it on my birthday when I was in Australia, and I was like, yeah, I'm really sorry about that.
This is what you're into, John. This is what you like.
Yeah, I was just like, you know what? I thought it would have some sort of like other level to it, but no, it was just like people, scantily dressed.
But my tastes are very Japanese, so like skimpy girls with swords fighting big anime robots.
Fine for an action film, but like it was. Anyway.
But even sorry. So I just want to say my final thing about Wonder Woman. And this is truly the final thing about Wonder Woman, is that like I really like the moment where you see the Amazonians fighting on the beach and they do the shield tactic, and then later on in the fight in Germany, Steve uses a bit of like I don't know, he uses a door or some shit to recreate that same tactic, and it was just a nice moment. I think we've been very spoiled for comic book movies this year.
Yeah,
we've had Guardians 2.
I just want to know, like. I mean, I'm obviously happy they're still going, and to be honest, it's to my disbelief, because usually I get kind of fed up with... if something drags out, I get kind of annoyed and get put off them and don't get excited. The fact that I've still maintained my excitement for comic book films, like, has shocked me. I genuinely expected, like, by now to be bored of them. Like, after Avengers 2, I had a bit of a wobble. I was like, that wasn't great. Is this where we see this, like, point of, this diminishing return? But no, like, they've come back and they're still going, and DC... might have a future ahead of them.
Hey, right. If they can make a good Wonder Woman movie, they might be able to make a good movie based on Aquaman.
Literally about to say that. Like, is that a thing?
I don't know. But before this ends, I want to just say that like there have been a lot of comic book movies I've enjoyed this year. Guardians 2, Logan, these two. Like I feel very spoiled, and the wheels certainly don't appear to be falling off anytime soon.
They don't. Bye.
Final joke.